If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that sub button for more amazing content. Now, let's jump straight into the video. What's good, YouTube, and welcome back to the Bofino One podcast, and I am your host, Bofino One, and as you guys can see here by the title that we're going to be talking about how a manager of 95 Phoenix Airbnbs is stunned that half his homes are empty over Super Bowl weekend. Is it the latest Airbnb bust? And so, many of you know Airbnb is essentially like vacation homes, right? Like, let's say you want to go out of town, and you want to rent a vacation home to do something out of town, whether, you need somewhere to stay essentially. And a lot of times people like it because they feel like it's a little more personal, right? Than just a hotel, where a hotel, it's like you have a room. Yeah, you get maid service and, you get breakfast, right? But you're not able to cook your own food. A lot of times Airbnb can even be cheaper sometimes if you go with a group of people, just because you guys can divvy up the tab or, the bill more, and as well as you're able to a lot of times get a lower cost, but you're getting more space. And so, I thought this was interesting because, Airbnb, I have been hearing about, I don't want to say it's dying, but I would just say that like people are not, I think, booking them, or they're not as hot as they was, like, let's say during the pandemic, right? So before we get into this video, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. So let's jump straight into it. So it says it should have been the busiest weekend in years for Phoenix Airbnb hosts, but short-term rental owners are scrambling to fill empty units with out-of-town revelers ahead of Sunday's Super Bowl matchup between the Kansas City Chiefs and Philadelphia Eagles. Months ago, Rice Kenworthy, who managed 95 properties in the Phoenix area through his company Old Town Rental, anticipated they'd all be rented out ahead of the big game. Now, 2 days before kickoff, occupancy sits at just 45%. For a prime 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom home that Kenworthy manages in Scottsdale, a suburb of Phoenix that prepped for a wave of Super Bowl visitors, Kenworthy initially thought he could fetch $1,200 a night with a 5-night minimum. He's cut the rate to $500 a night with 2-night minimum, and it's still not booked. It's mind-boggling at this point, Kenworthy told insiders. Well, you have to think about it too, right? Like, right now we're in the middle of like a mild, or whatever you want to call it, kind of recession. And so with that being said, if, people are in a recession, people think about their money, and some of these people probably have like, their, apartments or homes, whatever. They're probably like, well, why spend all this money with Airbnb when, I can just invite people to my home and then we can just, have a little small gathering here, and I don't have to pay all this money. Because you have to remember, it's still money. It still costs you money. The money that you spend, because Airbnb is not necessarily, it's cheaper, I think, when you have like a group, but it's not necessarily cheap, right? Because you have to pay for the room, the nightly cost. A lot of times there's a cleaning fee. There's all these different taxes you got to pay, right? So like all that money you're spending per night, even if it's $500 per night, that $500, you could have had the same party at your own place and then just use that $500 to go buy like food and alcohol and, you know what I'm saying, like everything else. So I think people are looking at ways that they can still have, I guess, a quote unquote party, the same thing, without spending so much money. So and that's what people do in a recession. They start looking at ways to cut back. And so that's how you can tell we're in a recession. The Super Bowl letdown comes as hosts in some areas complain that bookings have slowed. Twitter users chatter about an Airbnb bust, and market data suggests the increasing number of Airbnbs in the U.S. has outpaced increases in traveler demand. Some hosts are responding by switching to medium or long-term rentals or prioritizing direct bookings. The analytics site AirDNA has predicted that revenue will drop slightly for hosts across the country in 2023 compared with previous years. And so, like, it goes back to like what I said. When people are in a recession, people get scared. So people don't want to spend a bunch of money on stuff that, if they're uncertain about their job security, right? So, a lot of time traveling, going on vacations, people will hold that kind of stuff off because they're saying, hey, that money that we would use to travel, maybe we should use that, to have an emergency fund, So you have to think about it from like, I think these Airbnb people have to think about that. Your home is, Airbnb is a vacation. That's something you do for fun, right? So people are worried about having a roof over their head, foods in their house, that kind of stuff. According to AirDNA, as of Thursday, only 52% of available Phoenix rentals were booked. The site found that 2 recent Super Bowl host cities, Los Angeles and Miami, had over 80% of their available short-term rentals booked for their game weekends. A New York Times headline described Phoenix Super Bowl short-term rental market as a fumble. It's a signal not of a lack of travelers, but of oversupply. Thousands of people are expected to descend on Phoenix ahead of the Super Bowl, but visitors have more rentals to choose from than ever before. And that's the other thing too. Like, Airbnb a few years ago wasn't as big as it is now. It's like anything. It's almost like the rental market, right? You get in somewhere in a market that's up and coming before it like explodes, right? And so when you do that, you know what I mean? Like you reap the benefits. So the people that probably been had Airbnbs are reaping more of the benefits. But once it started to become big, I want to say around like 2019, 2020, that's when everyone's like, oh, I need to get Airbnb. I need to get an Airbnb, And so the supply is so big. There's so many places you can book. It's like they said, that there's such a high supply. It's more supply now than there ever was. AirDNA found that February 2017 to January 2023, Airbnb and VRBO listing in Phoenix more than quadrupled, growing to 21% from 5,000. A request for comment from Airbnb was not immediately returned on Friday. There are even signs of a recent surge in listing in response to Super Bowl hype. Kenworthy said an Airbnb representative told him that over 2,200 new listings came online in the past 2 months, which Kenworthy speculated stemmed mostly from locals who don't typically rent their spaces and were looking to ride the wave of the weekend. Brian Harvey, a director at Rate Simple Mortgage who lends to a mentor's short-term rental investor in Phoenix, said his clients had faced similar bookings slowdown. One of them, he said, has a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom unit close to much of the weekend's festivities. Guests initially booked it for $925 a night, but they canceled this week saying they found a cheaper deal nearby. Now the house costs just $300 a night and it's still available. And so there you go. It goes back to what they were saying, that because like with Airbnb, if you book X amount of like time out, you have up until a certain point to get your full refund, right? So if you find something that's cheaper, why pay more money? So it goes back to, like they said, the supply and demand. There's more supply, but not as much demand. So people have choices now. They don't have to just take your home. If your home is overpriced, they can go somewhere else. An Airbnb spokesman told the Arizona Republic that the last time Phoenix hosted the Super Bowl in 2015, Airbnb hosts in the area collectively earned more than $1.1 million over the weekend. Harvey said many locals were eager to get in on this action this time. In November, Harvey said one of his clients bought a 1,600 square foot 3-bedroom home about 10 miles from the stadium for $388,000. The client had anticipated he'd be renting it for $1,000 a night, but it's sitting empty this weekend. While Phoenix will continue to be a popular vacation spot, Harvey predicted that the Super Bowl disappointment would motivate some owners to sell their short-term rental properties. We'll see some of these people exit, he told Insider. I'm sure of it. So, that's serious. It's like I said before, it's a wave. People are trying to ride this Airbnb wave, and maybe some of them should just be looking to just rent it out to like renters, like maybe rent it out to people, long-term tenancy. I don't know, but it's like anything. Once people hear about something, they get on it, then it's like the rest of the world, wants to be a part of it. But if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.